When you think of Muslim scholars, whose names come to mind? In all likelihood, people are going to list a long line of male figures like Yusuf Qaradawi, Hamka, Al-Maududi, or Shaykh Qutbi, whose wisdom and contributions are undeniably relevant throughout history. But what about the woman? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Sarah Sofia, and in this video, I'm going to shine a spotlight on the female Muslim scholar Katherine Bullock, whose works have contributed to our understanding of Islam and Muslims themselves. We will be covering the topic of veil from post-colonialism theory. But first, let's get to know who Katherine Bullock is. Katherine Bullock is originally from Australia, but she embraced Islam in 1994, and now she lives in Canada with her family. She is a lecturer in the Department of Political Science at the University of Toronto, and her teaching focus is political Islam from the global perspective. She conducts research on Muslims in Canada, including the history and contemporary experiences. She also explored topics such as debates on the veil, media portrayal of Islam, and the Muslim perspective on zakat and basic income. Bullock has held notable positions such as editor of the American Journal of Islam Social Sciences and the vice president of the Association of Muslim Social Scientists North America. Additionally, she currently serves as the president of Compass Books, a publishing house dedicated to high-quality English language books about Islam and Muslims. Her own books include Muslim Women Activists in North America Speaking for Ourselves and Rethinking Muslim Women and the Veil Challenging Historical and Modern Stereotypes, which has been translated into Arabic, Chinese, French, Malayalam, Tamil, and Turkish. What an amazing! In Rethinking Muslim Women and the Veil, Challenging Historical and Modern Stereotypes, Katherine Bullock addresses various issues, such as historical fixation with the veil from post-colonialism perspective, real-life experience and perspectives of Muslim women in Western world, women's differing motivation for covering and the Western viewpoint, feminist discourse, and the positive theory of veiling. But a particular issue that draws me to comment on is the historical fixation with the veil from post-colonialism perspective. So when it comes to post-colonialism, the structure of course consists of the colonizer, colonized, and the colonial practices that sustains the colonialism, and also the resistance. In the case of veil in colonialism, we can draw different attitudes and reactions from the colonizer and colonized. Let's first take a look at the colonizer perspective. What is it that makes Europeans or the Westerns become so averse to the idea of hijab or veil? So, according to Katherine, this goes all the way back to the idea of seeing, especially to the modern experience of seeing the world as a form of exhibition. The Westerners believe that reality should be seen through its copy, which in simple terms mean we see the world as an outsider and the world is like a picture or exhibition. So this will allow us to see things objectively from a neutral place. So this perspective sounds okay until this observer suddenly come across something that cannot be seen or observed. Veil Muslim women. Following Mitchell's metaphor of seeing the world as an exhibition, I would analogize the Westerners' frustration with the veiled woman with our own frustration when we watch a drama, but the internet goes down. Very frustrating, right? So, the Europeans feel like they lost a sense of superiority when the object that is supposed to be the observation turns around and becomes a seeing or the observer instead. From the viewpoint of the colonizer, the veil is often seen as a symbol of backwardness and captivity. Europeans are seen to be struggling with the concept of the veil because they feel frustrated by their inability to gaze upon veiled women. Again, this frustration stems from the sense of loss of superiority because the veil prevents them from objectifying and fantasizing about Eastern women. On that note, there are various things that the Western do to channel the frustration of not seeing the veiled woman. Among them is the travel accounts that claim, or more like projecting I would say, that women behind the veils desire this man the same way that they desire the woman. There are also discourses of them feeling frustrated for not being able to be the savior to these Eastern females because of their oppressive husband. And the most preposterous thing is, it's not just the male travelers who create this narrative. You know how there was this early feminist stage where Western female authors would often imitate or copy the work or literature of men. So, from how I see it, in their attempt to claim their voice in literature, these female Western authors actually end up perpetuating this male discourse of veiled women. Some Western women also express their discomfort of the Eastern woman's gaze behind the veil because it makes them feel naked. So going back to the idea of to see is to be in power, just as Frantz Fanon said, women who see without being seen frustrates the colonizer. This is because the power dynamics are subverted. So to find the balance, the Western men retaliate by attacking the cause of this frustration, the veil. Then comes the various attempts to unveil Muslim women. They weave lies about their ugliness, portray them as naked or undressed, or invade their privacy. A particular instance in the book that infuriated me is the staged photos of postcards by Alola where he had prostitutes as substitutes of his models to fulfill the Orientalist illusion of Eastern women. Sadly, aside from being the object of fantasy, Eastern women are often objectified as animals, shapes, balloons, ghosts, or even the dead in various media. While Katherine mostly addresses the issue of veil from the perspective of the colonized, she also mentioned about the attitude of the colonized. Colonized people of the upper classes and lower classes have different attitudes to the Western people's aversion to the veil. The elites internalize or adopt the colonizers' view of the veil as backward and oppressive. Even the rulers see unveiling as a symbol of progress and modernization. So they attempt to modernize their countries by imitating the West. Ataturk is mentioned as an example of Muslim countries' ruler who made various drastic changes. Among the various outrageous acts he did, passing a modern dress code in the country pertains to the issue we have been discussing. The lower class of the colonized, on the other hand, refused to assimilate to the ideology promoted by the colonized. So this interestingly can be interpreted as a form of resistance and empowerment of the colonized because they uphold their values and reject the values imposed by the colonizer. So the idea of veil and its relationship with colonizer in this book is seemingly oversimplified by Katherine as caused by the veil's nature as gaze inhibitor, which understandably can be misunderstood by the readers. But on the deeper contemplation, we can reflect this back to the colonial mindset that the Westerns have. Putting themselves on higher moral grounds, the Western people usually feel the need and responsibility to civilize or liberate others. This sense of righteousness is also famously termed as the white man's burden in Rudyard Kipling's poem. They see other people as inferior and in need of their intervention. Their sense of superiority is also the drive to their tendency to impose their culture and values onto others. Hence why they tend to reject anything that is not normal or acceptable to them. The abnormal thing in our discussion today is, of course, the veil. Another aspect that I find interesting is the fact that values or religions can be used by politicians for their own agenda. From the points that Katherine put forward, the negative sides of veil, like backward or oppressive, are highlighted by the colonized, have influenced rulers or elites of other countries to look up to the Western countries, and while the colonized themselves deem their own countries as inferior. In modern context, Islamophobia is spread to help politicians garner agreement on things like restricting migration policies or the matter of civilians. But from a local context, religious values are also often used for political gains through false sense of solidarity as they appeal to the majority. Considering how seemingly easy people's minds can be manipulated through media and literature, as English major students, we have to be careful with what we consume. We have to identify any portrayal that reflects Orientalism or Islamophobia and be aware of our own biases. All in all, while discussion on veiled Muslim women and colonialism are usually highlighted the veil as symbol of otherness, inferiority, and backwardness, it is quite refreshing to unravel the possibility that veil becomes a form of empowerment as it caused the colonizer to feel threatened by the power imbalance. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ning Afafdiana and I'll be presenting on Chapter 2 Perceptions and Experiences of Wearing Hijab in Toronto in the book of Catherine Bullock. In this chapter, she shares on how Muslim women who wear hijabs views hijab and their understanding on hijab. So this perspective covers their own understanding and also their voices. She also shares in this chapter their experiences and their struggles, their reactions from people around them regarding their appearances and also the hijab. Um, this is very important because there are a lot of representation of women wearing hijab as in oppressed and so many others, yet it doesn't actually capture what women who wear hijab themselves feel. As mentioned by Bullock 2010 in page 36, the emergence of a voice that has been largely absent in the woman and Islam field, but a voice that is largely represented by a skeptical literature that questions whether or not of covering represents acceptance of patriarchy. Hence, in this chapter, we will unveil all about the perception and experiences of women wearing hijab in Toronto. There will be three key issues in this chapter. The main key issues in this chapter that I'll be covering. So, the first one is feminist methodology in hijab. The second one is perceptions of hijab. And the third one is experiences of women wearing hijab in the West. Oh, you need The first key issue is feminist methodology and hijab. As we all know, feminists urge the equal representation of men and women, and they fight for women's right and and they share on women's struggles and challenges. However, it is noted that feminists disregards the Muslim women community's voices because there are feminists in the chapter that Bullock shared. There are feminist scholars who had categorized as wearing hijab as oppressive. However, it is not the true case because every Muslim woman may have different perspective on hijab. Thus, each woman should be treated as an individual case. In another sense, some women who wear hijab may view that they wear hijab as a sign of being oppressed or being forced, but some may wear that as a sign of obedient and submissive towards their religion, as well as doing it on their own will. And in this chapter, Bullock look into what women say about their identity, notion of self, as well as their meaning they ascribe to their actions of wearing hijab. And to quote from Bullock 2010 in page 37, the exclusion of Muslim women's voices from the prevalent discourse of the meaning of veil is as oppressive it is of the same nature. So, in a sense that if we don't look into the meaning of veil and we don't cater to Muslim women's voices, it is as oppressive it would be towards them. Wait. Okay, so the second key issue is the perception of hijab. So the perception of hijab, there are basically three parts. So the first part is that I'll be sharing some of how the women that were being interviewed by Bullock perceive hijab. So some of them perceive hijab and understand hijab as well as wear it because of religion, influenced by girls with modest dress and behavior, as well as they think that it is more important to obey God than to please people, hence why they wear hijab. But also there are some negative perception given to hijab by these Muslim women themselves because they would not want to be associated with Arabs or Muslim. This is because Arabs and Muslims are being perceived as terrorists and have negative attributes towards them. Hence, they would not want to be associated with them. That's why they don't want to wear hijab, and some don't wear hijab because of family pressure, and because people perceive hijab as backwardness and poverty. Um, and another interpretation of hijab, traditionally, or it is considered male bias, is that women are suffering from false consciousness or being oppressed while wearing hijab. And it is to say that women wear hijab because of their culture or because of they are being forced to. However, it is not true because uh, most of the women in the interviewees among the interviewees said that hijab is mandatory for women of Islam to wear, as it is mentioned in the Quran and in the Hadith, very straightforward. And to quote from Bullock in page 51, the essential is that each one of us is respected and not derided as having chosen blindly, being brainwashed, deluded by false consciousness, and so on. Hence, we must be very respectful if the women of the Muslim women would want to wear hijab. We could not say that they are being forced to. Okay, the second key issue is the perception of hijab for the second part. So there are advantages of hijab as how these Muslim women perceive hijab. So the first one is that it uh, it helps in male-female interaction. It benefits the society and it protects women. So it helps male-female interaction because male are being more respectful and reserved to those who cover themselves, especially when they wear hijab or when they wear modesty. It benefit the society because women can avoid from getting unwanted attention by men, and men uh, can help themselves to increase their faith better. Meanwhile, the third one is it helps to protect women from being sexually harassed and provide a mood of decorous behavior. Besides that, the perception of hijab is that men and women are being treated equally, um, because men and women have different natures and complementary roles on earth. And Also, hijab, does it give freedom? According to all the women in the interview, they said that actually hijab is a device to facilitate women's movement outside their home, and it actually gives more freedom for them because they are more comfortable and feel more safe by wearing hijab and by being more modest. And the third one is that what does hijab give in terms of self-perception? So according to all the women in the interviewees of Bullock, hijab is a source of inner strength and it gives a high level of confidence and self-esteem. um, and also to include, Bullock mentioned in page 54, the feminist assertion that women who cover to help men not feel distracted are accepting patriarchal argument that masks the self-sacrifice of women for the sake of men as being rejected by all the perception of hijab by these women in the interviews. As I mentioned earlier, the advantages of hijab, the same equality that are given to men and women in Islam, the actual freedom of women, and also their own self perception that increases while wearing hijab. The second key issue, perception of hijab, part 3. So, whether hijab is an act of socialization or compulsion. So, the assumption remains of women being brainwashed by family or culture on hijab and are not allowed to question it. So, this would be seen as an act of compulsion where women are being forced to wear hijab. However, it is important to note that there will be attempts to socialize the citizen of one community into acceptable and unacceptable behavior. and that these people are grow with different culture and background. So in some culture, the society will try to attempt to socialize their citizens into believing what is correct or what is true based on their own belief and understanding. So if they perceive wearing hijab as an act that would contribute to a better community, it would not be considered as a compulsion because there is no act of force rather than the act of socialization. As mentioned by Bullock 2010 in page 54, socialization that hijab is a good thing is not the same as compulsion. Okay, to further understand the socialization or compulsion, we will look into several reactions of hijab within the community. So the first one is the negative Muslim reactions to hijab, and this is because there are two possible reasons why Muslim give negative reactions towards hijab. The first one is that they see wearing hijab as a sign of backwardness and low class status, which will be further elaborate and discussed in the from in the next slides. And the second one is the marriageability and beauty. Some of the Muslim women, family think that by wearing hijab, it will lessen the chance of them being able to get married because they will be perceived as less attractive compared to those who do not cover themselves modestly. The second one is the reactions of converts family. Most of the convert family view wearing hijab as an act of socialization because most of them wear hijab based on their own willingness. Hence, there are no sign of compulsion or no sign of force towards those who wear hijab. And the third one is the positive Muslim family reactions to hijab. This is because most of these Muslim family um, would consider their family members who wear hijab or who start to cover themselves more modestly as an act of being more religious and closer to the religion. So the third and last key issue, is experiences of women wearing hijab in the West. So I'll be sharing to you guys some stories from women who were being interviewed by Bullock, and that was shared in this chapter, which covers six perspectives: the broader community, when being Muslim is irrelevant, school reaction, converts workplace experience, pressure to assimilate, and being Muslim and being Canadian. So for the first perspective is the broader community. Most women in the interviewee shared that they were being viewed with a foreign look because wearing hijab was not familiar within the community. Some did question them very nicely, but some did give negative reaction and views towards them. The second perspective is when being Muslim is irrelevant. This case was encountered by a Muslim woman doctor when she was treating her patient in a hospital. The patient was questioning her attire, her hijab, which was something that was uncomfortable for the doctor because um, she sees that as her presence of being Muslim is being questioned in a sense. And the third perspective is the school reaction, which is kind of similar to the converts workplace experience where they encounter discrimination and harassment from the people around them, from colleagues, from other students, being teased at, and um, the fifth one is pressure to assimilate. This is a very interesting key point because um, in this perspective, Bullock shared how a woman how the woman shared that uh, men have less pressure to assimilate compared to women, which leads to men losing their Islamic identity um, uh, more compared to women, because women would have to wear hijab, while men can assimilate very easily with the community, especially the West community, because it's not much different in terms of their look and attire, which is a struggle for especially Muslim women. And the last one is being Muslim and being Canadian. The women in the interviews were asked whether um, which one is more important and valuable for them. Is it being Muslim or being Canadian? And most of them replied being Muslim came first before being Canadian, because being Muslim in Islam, it doesn't matter where you come from, what country you are, what skin color you are, what race you are. There is no issue in regards of that, but the most important thing that will be looked in the hereafter later is their piety. So for all Muslim women, they said that being Muslim is their first identity. Okay, as a conclusion for chapter 2, I'll be including two quotation from Bullock 2010, which is from page 84. The first one is hijab symbolized not oppression, not terrorism, but purity, modesty, a woman's Islamic identity, and obedience or submission to God, and a testament that you're Muslim. This emphasized that there is no force, no oppression towards women who wear hijab, and it is done and conduct within their own will. And the second quotation is, if feminist methodologies and epistemologies of our experience as a foundation for knowledge are to mean anything, these meanings of hijab should be taken seriously and the woman not derided for holding false beliefs. In a sense that Muslim women's act of wearing hijab shouldn't be seen as an act of oppression or being forced, right? Because that is a false belief holding against them, which is actually being which actually shows that they are being oppressed by the feminist perspective towards them, rather than trying to um, rather than trying to fight for their rights. Wait, 1 minute